One of the principal things is speaking with your own voice. That brings you into relationship with your own identity and your own essence. And as you speak from that voice, you become more authentically yourself.
Hi, my artsy folks. My name is Elina. I'm an artist, a researcher, and an entrepreneur. Welcome to my channel. Today is a special video of an interview format. This is my guest today. This is Roberta Prada. She is a contralto. Roberta is a classical singer, and Roberta sang opera, recitals, and concerts. She is a writer, a translator. She is from the United States. She lives in New York City. Roberta started her career in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and she has received a Barrington Prize in Music. She is a recipient of William Matthew Sullivan Grant, and she has published books on the ear and the voice. This is a method by Tomatis. It's a very special method. Check it out. And for the voice and singing. So she was a translator and editor of these books. Thank you so much for being my guest today. We are going to talk about a very important subject for artists, performing artists, but also perhaps visual artists, because we are the people who are representing our art, and we have to be able to talk about it and to talk about ourselves and our process and to stand the ground. So we will talk about confidence. Yeah. What are the paths that one can take in order to actually reach a state when one is an artist who is comfortable with themselves, with the audience, perhaps with the managers, promoters, who actually feels good about what they are doing and about who they are?
That's a very big subject and a very important one. Of course, I'm going to preface it by saying this. It's impossible to feel good about yourself unless you have a very fine technique in whatever it is you're doing. If you don't have enough technique, you're going to fall apart. And somewhere in the back of your mind, when you're not fully in dominion of your instrument, be it art, music, dance, acting, singing, whatever it is, if you don't feel that you have a really fine competence in what you're doing, then in the back of your mind, you're going to say, I don't know.
Something's off.
You know what? If you're honest, if you're an artist, I presume you're honest, because that's part of who we are, is our honesty. And so I'm going to presume that there will be a little internal feeling that you have, maybe at the pit of your stomach, I don't know where, that you're going to say, I'm a faker. And
oh, that sounds bad.
That's bad. I think that's really bad. And I think that, all right, so let's say for the purposes of our discussion that you are all gaining full competence in a technical sense. And for the singers, I'd like to say you cannot have too much technique. You just
Brilliant.
Can't. So, all right, so we're going to presume you're all on the road, right? Now, I have found with the people that I've worked with that the Tomatis kind of listening, especially for artists, is a really big thing. And I've even gone so far as to make a CD-ROM that has Tomatis music on it for people who can't get it any other way.
And we'll include the links below, by the way, for everyone.
Yeah, they're really, the only link is to write to me, and then I'll figure out how to send them a copy. Okay. And I would also say that as part of your quest, it would be a really great idea to buy the ear and the voice in English. It's a very different book from what it is in other languages because I heavily edited the book. It was too long and too repetitive. And the review on this book is that it makes sense more than any other book on Tomatis. So I'm very proud of my work. And it wasn't easy. But if you read this, you'll understand how your brain works and you know, how you relate to your art. That's part of it. The other part, this thing about finding your own voice that people talk about, partly it's feeling grounded. And grounded means really that if somebody tries to knock you over, you're so good on your feet that they can't. That's a mental and physical thing. You can actually teach it physically, and it will connect with your mind and your feeling that you're safe and that you are yourself. This is a funny one. One of my best grounding exercises that I ever did was iron shirt qigong, where I did this exercise, and I've done it with my students. It's very simple. I teach it to them. What it is I don't know if I can show you this, but no, I don't think I can really.
Okay.
But it's like this. You stand firmly, and if someone stands on your side and puts one hand on your shoulder and one hand on your elbow and pushes towards the middle of your body, you sink down into your feet. Your legs are slightly flexed. Never stand with stiff legs. That's for the singers. Don't get in that habit. It'll ruin your posture and ruin your emission. But anyway, there you are with your legs a little bit flexed, and somebody shoves you from the side. And what you do is you make your weight go down into the center of your body and into the floor. Then you have them walk around and do it from the other side. They push to the middle of your body, and you respond by resisting and driving your weight into the ground. Do that a couple of times, and you get this feeling of being rooted. That's very important. Now, in my case, I learned it through Tai Chi, but you can just learn it in your living room from somebody doing that exercise with you. And, you know, for the dancers and the singers and the actors, you all learn how to fall correctly. And that's a matter of managing your weight so you won't break a bone if you have to fall, or if you fall. You know, dancers fall, and they have to do it in such a way, you know, that they won't break a bone. Singers have to learn how to sink down, just like the iron shirt, and land in such a way that they land on their bum and it doesn't hurt them. Actors too. But this grounding exercise is what makes you know that if you fall, you can handle it, because you can be in control. And knowing that you're strong in your own body it's a very powerful message. You know, that you're not rootless, that the grounding. And you know, when kids are in their teenage years, they grow so fast, and their voices change, and their body changes, and the hormones rush into their brain, and they're just really, it's about the same as menopause, having done both. And you know, you're just really out of sorts, and your hormones drive you nuts. And it's at that point when kids have to learn how to be with themselves, you know, because they don't know who they are right at that moment. They're taller, they're wider, they've got hair growing on them in places they never thought of. And it's really, and they get headaches, and they get tired, and they get overwhelmed, and they need more sleep. And it's just like, if at that time they learn how to speak from their authentic self, then boy, you know, you've got it made. The iron shirt exercise is part of that. And the other part of it is learning how to breathe deeply and really speak from your center. Now, I'm not in the room with any of you, so I can't actually teach you, but I can tell you that that's got to be a goal for you. And that finding your voice as a human being and making it so that you speak authentically will drive your art. And that's if you're a painter, no matter who you are, having found your real voice, the sound of your voice, and not some fake thing that you do to please other people, finding your own voice will give it to you. So spend some time experimenting with that. I don't know, Elina, you very nicely found your own voice. And what do you
Thank
think?
you.
Yes.
Well, not without your help.
Yes. I wonder if you have anything that you could say to people about the help I gave you, because I'm not really sure, you're never really sure what it is the person takes in and when it clicks.
Yeah, it was so many years ago. I don't even remember the year because you know me for about half of my life, I think. Roberta is one of my mentors. Yes, so dear to me. And I'm so grateful for all your efforts that you put into me as not only as an artist, but into my personality. And Roberta helped me feel comfortable in my skin when I was a teenager, when I was probably starting college or something.
No, it was before that.
Before that, but I think it kind of started kicking in during my first couple of years in college. I remember we did exercises, just speaking exercises, nothing to do with, I'm not talking about singing, because I also did singing with you, classical singing, which I don't really use anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that was probably part of finding your voice,
I'm sure, but I remember very well that you told me if I would sound as the way I did, before, I was speaking actually from right about here up, and there was no voice. It was like a little mouse voice.
It was very timid.
Yeah, if you talk on the phone with someone with that type of a mouse voice and you have to convince someone, nobody is gonna listen to you because you don't sound convincing, you don't sound real. And I thought about it, oh, maybe that's the way it works, but I had no idea what to do with myself because I was maybe 18, 19 years old or something. And then I remember one time really well, probably there are a few times like this, but you put me next to a wall at your place, and you went to the opposite wall of your living room, and you told me, talk to me now. And I wasn't sure what you meant, and yeah, what were we doing? But I thought, okay. And then you said, I cannot hear you because you're speaking not even to yourself. You're so closed up. And I was. And you made me actually project, not like singing, but actually my speech and my voice. And we were talking like this expressively, which was strange for me. I was not used to talk like this. I was not even not that I was not used to hearing my voice like that. I didn't even know that I had it so deep down there. Remember? And that's, I guess, how it started.
That's right. Because you
gave me a boost.
Yeah, speaking from your gut,
I guess.
Now we know that your gut is part of your brain. Okay, people didn't used to know that, but now when people say they have a gut feeling, that's a real thing. And speaking from your gut is a real thing too. I, of course, have a low voice, and I naturally speak from my gut.
Me too.
But
I have a low voice.
But it wasn't always that way, not for me either.
I mean, this is the way we are born. I don't think you can fake a low voice or a high voice. I mean, maybe until a certain point, but then it's going to start hurting somewhere.
Exactly. That's the point of using your own voice. Then for singers, once you speak with your own voice, you'll find your tessitura and you'll know where you belong.
Which is the question of the century for every singer.
Yes, and it shouldn't be answered too soon either. I mean, you know, you really have to be into it as a singer. People have to allow you to experience yourself in all these registers. And finally, after a while, you'll realize you're more comfortable in a certain register. I started singing soprano, and people used to say, "How come you have such a low voice?" And I'd say, "I don't know."
You, a soprano. Wow.
Yeah, well, when I was young, I had these little high notes. Anyway, that's not important. That's not why we're here. But,
I mean, I'm not used to this idea. That's why I was like,
yeah, no, when all kids have high voices, you know, and then the thing comes at puberty, your voice does what it's going to do. The funny thing is that, you know, sometimes it's the opposite of what you think, because I really had a very high, light voice, okay? And then it became what it is right now, which is not high and it's not light. And
it's full and powerful.
Right.
At the moment, because this is you.
That's me. Yeah. That's it. And the people with whom I interact as students, I expect that kind of authenticity from them. It just makes it so much easier and freer, and your throat loosens up, and your creativity loosens up. And that's the big deal.
Oh, that's the key, I believe.
That is the key.
Do you think that because a lot of young emerging artists haven't found their voice, not just, I'm not talking about the speaking or the singing voice literally, but that also can be included, but themselves haven't found themselves comfortable in their own skin, sometimes they don't know how to respond and how to interact with for example, employers or managers, and I believe they end up underpaid pretty often. Do you think these two things might be connected in a way?
Oh, absolutely. If you don't know who you are and what you can command, then you can't ask for what's due you. You know, what you really should receive. And that means, it means a couple of things. You have to know what would be the standard, and to know yourself well enough to figure out where you fit in that standard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I don't know how managers are today. I can tell you that in the days before I had my career, there were managers who took hold of a young singer, that's my experience, but also young instrumentalists, and who told them how to behave, what to wear, and what their repertoire should be according to their personality. And so then they had really quite a framework, and then they came to an understanding with their manager of what their place was in the theater or in the concert hall, and what would be their best, in the case of the singers, their best role. In the case of an instrumentalist, maybe their best composer, or where they should be heading as far as a solo career, or maybe they belonged in an ensemble, or maybe they should head for an orchestra. And all of those things were done with managers who acted as wise parents. You know, it's artistic parents, not parents.
Right.
But they also, you know, people who showed up looking sloppy, or not having good table manners, or not knowing how to write thank you notes and all that stuff, they would teach them that. And now everybody's a little bit to the four winds without that kind of guidance. And so the kinds of questions that you're talking about, they weren't there in the period of the golden age of singers. They, you know, they were much more well parented by their managers, and maybe part of it is trying to get a manager to have a good relationship with you, where you can talk frankly about stuff. I don't know. Is that possible? And also emerging artists. If you emerge without your technique and without your repertoire in place, then of course you're going to be frightened. How can you not? So my argument would be, when you see somebody young and sexy and you decide they should sing a role that's years down the pike that they shouldn't be doing now, just because they look like it, then that's trouble they're going to get into, bad trouble.
Absolutely. And it happens
and the same
everywhere all the time, unfortunately.
Yes, and I think it must be the same for the pianists and for the violinists. You've got to have chops. We all have to have chops. And if you don't have chops and you get out there, then you're defenseless. And you know what? You're going to get scared.
But most likely you actually don't have anyone, or sometimes we are lucky if we end up with good teachers. I consider myself personally many times lucky. I don't know, triple, quadruple, whatever. But it's not the case for everybody. For every instrumentalist or singer or a dancer or an actor, sometimes it just doesn't click, and then they have to figure out their own ways, and yes, it's tough.
Okay, here's what I would say about that. If you have a teacher who's making you feel funny, who's not helping you conquer your technical problems, or who's not supportive of you emotionally, then leave, because it's important not to spend your formative years with people who are beating up on you or who don't know their job. And with singers, you sometimes find that when the teacher gets to the end of what they know, they start telling you that you can't sing because you're nuts. And it's really something that you're lacking in your foundation that makes you feel nuts. It makes you feel scared, because you can feel okay in a room with your teacher. Then you get out and try to perform and perform. You yourself, if you're honest with yourself and you're speaking with your true voice and playing with your true voice, you'll find where your deficiencies are. And you should be able to say, look, X happened and I'm not satisfied and I want to be able to do X. Now, what is your solution? And if they have none, or if they tell you, I already told you and you're nuts, leave immediately. You owe them nothing.
Yeah, this is great. For everyone having doubts out there right now, listen to Roberta. She knows what she's talking about. And that might be your magical punch.
First, get in touch with yourself. I know, even if you're not a singer, sing. Singing is one of the best ways to heal your body that was ever invented. And maybe you're not so good. Okay, so go in the shower and do it, so nobody has to listen.
Wonderful advice from a professional singer.
Yes, I'm talking to writers and painters and dancers and actors and instrumentalists and singers. Just sing from your gut. Don't worry about anything. Bring yourself and keep yourself in contact with who you are. When you have a gut feeling, do not dismiss it. If you're the teacher and you suddenly start to, in your tummy, somebody's saying, I don't know about this, think about it. And if it's real, get the hell out.
Trust yourself, trust your mind and your body. And
trust your gut.
I guess that's a path towards being comfortable in your own skin.
And being authentic. What we want, no matter who you are, is your authentic voice. Whatever interferes with that, you have to get rid of it. Sometimes you'll have an adult who will be a very valuable, I don't know, your home team or somebody who roots for you. all those things are nice, but if somebody that you are paying to teach you is not rooting for you, then what's happening is with anything they're teaching you, they're also slipping in a little poison. That's poison.
True.
So, and there's chemistry, chemistry between people. If you have a teacher with whom you feel chemistry, you'll be fine, as long as they're good. You can have chemistry with people who aren't good enough. And they can take you a certain part of the way, but then when it becomes clear that you're not making progress and you're at an impasse, then you've come to the end of that teacher's knowledge. And you can be very grateful to what they've taught you so far, but you may need to move on.
Yeah, we all need to find that time to let go and move on it, and it's part of our journey.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are lucky they stay with the same teacher all their life. I know that my singing teacher, who was a marvelous diva, and she was Argentine, and she used to say to me, you must always have a teacher, and at the end of the season, you go back to your teacher the way you would go to a doctor and you get a checkup. Because when you're on the stage and doing things, certain things, you'll distort certain parts of your technique because stuff happens when you're in the middle of doing something. So the reason you go back to your teacher is to see if you've gotten into any bad habits or if you need to add something to what you're already doing technically. So that's a search that continues throughout your career. It's not simply a stage that you pass through. It is how you keep yourself in shape the whole time. And there's one other thing I would say too, and that is to keep your, read some books about sensible nutrition and eat the right things and get your 8 hours of sleep, 9 if you need them. And that's part of making you perform at your best.
Yeah, especially I guess for singers and actors who actually work with the bodies, dancers, of course.
Yeah, but
who work with the voice. Yeah.
An instrumentalist works with their body in a different way.
Yes, but still for instrumentalists, it's different in a way because we do have an instrument, a physical object we work with. And for you guys, your instrument is inside your body. So if your body is not maintained, you don't have a good instrument technically. It's like for pianists having a piano tuner come in every now and then, every few months to tune and to clean the piano and to do the voicing and things like that. So it's just maintenance as well. What do you think about the two very important aspects for every artist and how to balance between them? So on one side, we have the confidence. On the other side, we have self-criticism. And a lot of people, for example, a lot of people I know personally are not happy after every performance because they think they could have done better and still better and still better, although they are great. And there are other people who sometimes perform in a very strange way, and it's very clear that they could have done better, but they come out and they look so confident and so happy and so satisfied that you ask yourself, okay, do they pretend they are satisfied, or is it really so and they don't understand that they really need to work so much more? So they are confident, but what do you think about this? Icy road.
That is an interesting question. There's a lot of stuff about how body language, fake it till you make it and all that stuff. I think in our profession, people who are doing a lousy job are going to get weeded out. And if they're overconfident, I think you're talking about overconfident because you want to be able to express fully from your own gut, but with an excellent technique. And part of the misery factor that you're talking about, you walk off stage and you say, I could have done that better. I know, this, I didn't like this and I didn't like that. You have to be able to also say, and that was okay. And that was good, but
Totally.
it's part of being an artist to be unsatisfied. Really, it is. It's part of who we are. I have two kids. One of them's an actor and the other one is a producer, director. She does so many things, right? And when they were little, they were not happy campers. They were always worried and they were self-critical, and perfectionism was something that they had, which is not good. And they got it from me and their father. And, it's a stumbling block, perfectionism. I don't know how you get out of it. I think it's a personality trait, and I'm not sure you can get rid of it. If you could, it'd be a good idea to work on it, to understand that machines are perfect, people aren't. And the imperfections that we have are part of what we bring to our work, and other people who are also imperfect, they're going to hear us. And if our vulnerabilities and our imperfections show but do not destroy our work, then that's okay, particularly actors, my God, yeah. So you have to be able to live with the fact that you're not perfect. On the other hand, with the artistic personality, some suffering is it's part of who we are. And I think what is helpful is to have some sort of a sense of humor about it. You just say,
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so if you can laugh at some of the stupid junk you come up with, you'll be in a better place. Really think. Yeah, I just think life is not possible without a sense of humor. That's the way I feel about it, to tell you the truth.
I love it. Thanks, Bobby, for bringing us back to earth.
Yeah.
I think we are all so somewhere high up in the sky. I mean, with our ambitions, goals, we have to be up there. And the humor brings you back to reality in a way.
Yes. You know who was... Mozart was a great joker.
Oh, yeah.
He and his sister used to write these ridiculous letters to each other.
Right, yeah.
Yes, and it kept them grounded. Because if you live in the air so much of the time, then where are your feet? Where's the ground? And humor is a great thing for grounding yourself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We all need it. That's why musicians tell so many jokes.
Totally. Well, my next question to you is probably this would be helpful to emerging artists. Would you suggest any particular practices or mantras, things to do just before a performance in order to feel grounded? I mean, you mentioned that exercise, but you have to have another person helping you.
A few times you can feel that you're rooted to the ground. You can actually just stand there and feel your feet on the ground and feel solid about it. Now, what people do before they perform is a very individual thing. I was talking to a friend of mine that I've known for a long time. We did a poem together ages ago. And he is pretty much like me. Before I go on stage, I usually have a nap. Now that's a good one. That sounds crazy to some people, but I don't do it because I've been told to do it. It's because I need it. And I set myself, before I take a nap, I say to myself, I say, well, I'm going to do X. Well, I'm not performing at the moment, but I say to myself, I'm going to be doing X. So while I take a nap, I'm going to be thinking about that. And so it's a nice, relaxed way to think about what you're going to do. I know this, that I once took the thing that the instrumentalists in orchestras take when they have a rough conductor and they're going crazy. They take something called Inderol, which is supposed to be very good for your autonomic nervous system. And I found that when I took it, I tried it in a voice lesson.
Oh, at least not during before a performance.
No, I would never try anything during a performance if I hadn't checked out already. That's very important. And I found that I was so relaxed, I didn't give a damn anymore.
And how did it go? Did it help you?
Performed or not?
Did it help you eventually?
Oh, no.
Okay.
It disconnected me from what I needed a certain amount of intensity, and if that's nerves, and if that's when it comes to me, I'm high strung at those moments. The minute I get out on stage, I'm okay. There are great people in the theater who throw up before they go on stage every damn time, and it's not something they have any control over.
Oh,
it's
wow.
just what happens to them. They get so wound up that they purge before they go on stage, and then they get on and they're fine. It's just, their autonomic nervous system is revving up. We're all finely tuned. Everyone has to know. Some people need encouragement in some way or another, but chemical encouragement, I would say it's not a good idea. You never know what's going to happen to you. These guys who sit in a chair in an orchestra, they took Inderal. I know.
Mm-hmm.
They said so, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to. They don't have such a fever pitch of refinement and of self-knowledge that's necessary to carry on what they're doing. They need a very great degree of competence, and if their nerves are interfering with the competence, okay, I understand it. But when I tried it, I can only tell you it was a big failure.
Mm-hmm. Especially considering that for singers, first of all, you stand. Second of all, in the opera, you move, you sit, you walk, you really move around. Sometimes you have to sing laying down. And if you take something that makes you lightheaded, then it's even dangerous to control the body. What if you fall?
It's used to lower people's blood pressure, but it's also used in this, this thing to try and make yourself relax. But I was so relaxed, I just didn't give a damn. And not caring about what you're doing is not what we're after.
Yeah,
so
of course.
If my degree of high nervousness before I go on stage, and I can tell you it's agony. I go through all kinds of things, but it's just that I can't help it. That's what happens. My nervous system, when it's gearing up, it does that.
Right. But there are some people who can't even, I have heard that they cannot go out onto the stage and perform without taking a certain chemical because they are so anxious, they're so stressed that they cannot control their bodies, their instruments, they don't know where they are, what's going on, they go crazy. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's
people like that
it's
should
really horrible. Or they have to just probably sort out their mental issues with a professional first of all.
Yeah, they might have some they might have some sort of a phobic response, and that can sometimes happen from mean teachers,
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Perhaps.
Or I don't know, something in their childhood, or maybe it's just their nervous system that just turning on, it just goes a little bit into overdrive. But then that overdrive, they use it the minute they're on stage, so they're okay. But the ones who are completely dysfunctional, they should find somebody to help them. They may even be dealing with trauma. Yeah. And it could be so far back that they don't even remember it because it might be preverbal. And in cases like that, I think that something like tapping is supposed to be good. I've heard it's good. I did it once. It didn't work for me. But I've heard that that's one thing. But, more and more people are getting away from chemicals to fix mental problems because they have too many side effects.
Yeah, it's important. There is this tendency now to get away because I believe chemicals don't help you solve the problem, solve the cause of the problem.
Exactly.
So it doesn't get to the root. It's only the consequence.
But look, if you you know, there's a time in your life when you're pre-verbal. You can't talk. And so if during that time something happens to you which you're not going to remember or be able to verbalize, you could have something in there. Or there are things that people can't talk about, and all the talk in the world wouldn't help it anyway. So getting somebody who can do it through a nonverbal, who can help you in a nonverbal channel is really a terrific thing.
That is an interesting subject.
Yes, it is. You know, I did NLP, and in fact, I became a practitioner because it was so interesting to me.
Could you please specify what it stands for?
Neuro linguistic programming. I did some of that. It's got a bad rap now because some people can try to use it for very underhanded purposes. But, you know, I just learned it to try and understand some things that were going on with me because I did have some traumas. And I found it very useful because it teaches you how to communicate effectively. And once I knew all the things that were involved, I became so comfortable with myself that I never again thought about problems with communication. So that's one way to go. And it's nonverbal because you can do things with imagery that help people get out of that. You can sit with them and for instance, if they're phobic about performing, then you do this thing that takes away their phobia.
This is amazing. It sounds like a miracle coming true for a lot of artists, probably.
Yes, that's true. But no one particular technique is miraculous. And nobody can solve everything with just one technique. So I remember when I was leaving to get married and move to Argentina, I asked my grandmother, who was from Bialystok, I said, Grandma, do you have any sayings that you remember from Russian from when you were little? And she said, yes, one. If you put a poultice on the town clock, it'll suck all the mud out of the streets. And that was an example. That was the kind of comment that you would make when some politician told you that they were going to have a perfect solution for everything that was wrong, and it was going to be specific, like a poultice on the town clock. And it was it was something funny to think of when you thought you'd found a solution for everything. No one thing is a solution. You cobble together different things that for you in your journey have become a solution. But there is no one thing that will be the best solution for everyone. And that's very good to keep in mind. It's, you know, the people who do Tomatis sometimes think they can cure you of everything with the listening, but really they can help with certain things, but not everything.
Yes, and it's a combination, individual combination for everyone.
Yes, and it's wise to remember that. And if people have such a bug in their ear about what they're doing, that they think it's the one true God or something like that, be careful, because it's not.
Yeah,
it never is.
Totally.
That's why. Yeah.
Oh, what would be your advice to the young artists, probably in their teens, 20s, just emerging artists who are fresh out of school, all ready to go, but have no idea how things work?
Well, you know, sometimes if you're in school, the schools teach you how things work. Like, I think people who
that depends.
Yeah.
Not every school offers that as part of the curriculum. Some schools do have it as an elective, for example. But for me, I can share my experience. I could have had things like that, like entrepreneurial musicianship, stuff like this, when I was studying. But somehow I thought that why would I ever need it? And I have to go practice. I have to go practice in order to play better, and then everything is going to work. Just because I practice and play better, things will somehow click. And I had no idea that 10 years later, or what is it? How many years later? Now I'm thinking back to those years, and I wish I would have taken courses on entrepreneurial musicianship, because I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn how things work while making these things work and making a lot of mistakes, for example. But that's my personal intake, and I hope that it's different for a lot of other people, that they already know what they are doing. I had no clue.
Well, look, I want to say this, though. Sometimes you know what you're doing and you're good at it, and it's still hard. Particularly right now, it's hard for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are.
That's true.
You've got no place to go with this. You can't perform in public. There are very limited opportunities for very small scale performances or ensembles under very limited conditions. And that's probably time to work on some of those skills you're talking about. It's, if you have free time now, then whatever aspect that you feel in your education is missing, this is the time to go after it, because yeah, I mean, this is what you should be doing now. You shouldn't be sitting around feeling sorry for yourself.
Totally.
Yeah. And for instance, the singers, you could go into history of art, or, you know, read books on acting, or improve your language ability in the languages that you're going to be called to sing in, not just the diction, but go to your scores and make sure that you know what every single word means to you. And then after you have the meaning, put visual pictures in there as though you were speaking in your own language, so that when you get on the stage, you are thinking in pictures, so you don't have a little voice going yak, yak, yak while you're trying to sing in a completely different language.
Yeah, so you have it as your own after all that process.
Yes, exactly. You take ownership of it, because you then you have images, just the way when I talk to you, when I think of something, I have a picture or a movie in my mind that prompts what I'm saying, but it's not a verbal thing. It's nonverbal. It's visual. In my case, it's very visual. That's how I am. Some people, it might be a feeling in their body. Certainly, it's always a gut feeling. You've got to be in touch with your gut. You've got to be in touch with your gut. Or you can't, how can you interpret if you're not in touch with your gut? You can't.
Then it's not going to be yours. It's not going to be coming from you.
No, it's going to be somebody told you to play louder here and softer there, and you'll sound like a robot, and people will get that you're a robot. That's what they'll get. They won't get you, because you're not getting you. So that's probably the biggest thing. But on the business end of what you're saying, my God, that is a tremendous thing. It used to be that managers took you the whole way with that, but they're not. They don't do that anymore. I don't know what it is they do. They try and pick a few people and push them, regardless of what consequence it has for them. In the old days, nobody pushed you beyond what you could do, because they wanted you to have a long life, and they wanted to make their commission.
Yeah, and now they all want to get some quick money. I guess things changed.
Everything is far too disposable and quick. So you have to be, if we can't sit here and lament that that's the way it is. You have to figure out how to outsmart them. I don't know how. Everything's going to be different for everybody. But at least if you know what the reality is, you can figure your way into it and market yourself through who you are, not through what somebody else wants you to be, or you think expects you to be.
Yes, finding your own voice once again.
Finding your own voice, yeah. But also knowing you gotta make your way in the world. Yeah. We one time we had this project with a singer, a young man in a voice category that is very rare, one of the rare categories, meaning that, beautiful voice. It should have been that if he got into an opera company, they would keep him forever because these guys are hard to find, right? He had very important issues with reliability, both as a human being and as an artist. And so he was not engaged again.
Mm.
In fact, they asked him to leave early. Because when you are in a position with a company of some sort or performing in a formal situation, people have expectations as to your behavior, and it behooves you not to become a difficult person, because you know what? Suppose you have a hall for a rehearsal that's rented for X amount of hours, and the personnel are on hand for that. That's even if you're a soloist. Now, if you're a soloist with an orchestra, then you have a full orchestra being paid. If you're going to spend your time in useless stuff, you're going to lose your job.
Of course.
Nobody's going to want you around because time is money. So you have to come in fully prepared, no matter what it is. People who come to a first reading of an opera without knowing their role, not good. Because it wastes everyone's time and it makes everyone angry. I once saw somebody who came into the Teatro Cologne at the very last minute with a role, Don Giovanni, guy's dead now, but he came there and he'd never sung a Mozart opera. And he didn't know Don Giovanni, but somebody canceled at the last minute. And he was who was available, and he was a big Verdi singer. Oh. And the rehearsal period was 6 weeks. And he spent every waking hour with a coach pounding the music into him. See, he came without knowing the book, but that wasn't his fault. So they gave him every consideration. But under normal conditions, you're not going to have somebody assigned to you. You're going to be on your own, recognizance. And people expect you not to hold the works up by not knowing what your stuff.
Yeah.
That's the deal. That's the deal.
Yeah. Find your voice, practice, get a good teacher. I guess that's the recipe.
Always. Always.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Roberta, for sharing your experiences, for sharing your thoughts and your ideas here. This should be a really great video for emerging artists, for performers especially. And I'm just really, really grateful to be connected to you. Once again, check the links below on what Roberta is doing. If you're interested in the Tomatis method, she is the one to contact. We will provide her information below in the description, and there will be info on the books.
One of the principal things is speaking with your own voice. That brings you into relationship with your own identity and your own essence. And as you speak from that voice, you become more authentically yourself. And then your choices will be from your own gut. And that's really important. Not only, what you're going to do with your life and who are the people you're going to be with, but also what kind of a career in the arts you want to have, or in any other thing that you want to do. So finding your own authentic voice and staying in relationship with yourself is going to be what guides you for the rest of your life in everything you do. It's a big deal.
Yeah, so deep. I love talking to you, Bobby, every time.
Well, thanks for inviting me. This was really fun, and I hope it helps.
A reminder that I'm offering free consultations for organizing your artistic projects. It can be on project descriptions, grant writing, structuring your budgets, writing artist statements, and so on. Everything is also below in the description. We wish you to have an amazing time and see you in the next video. Bye.